Welcome to the Playbook presented by the Leaders Lab. I'm Ken Eslick, and if you're a leader or founder who wants to hire top talent, scale your business, and sell for more, you're in the right place. Each week, Onika Kwatsha and I bring you practical, actionable advice that you can put to work immediately to make an impact in your business today. And now, here's this week's episode. Hey everyone, today we're going to build on something we've talked about before, which is behavioral assessments and how to use them better to understand the fit of a prospective candidate. In past episodes, we focused on things like Team Compass, which is mapping the behavioral makeup of an entire team and how to use that to improve communication, leadership. But today we're going to take that a step further. We're going to talk about how we use advanced behavioral assessments, things like the DISC, Motivators, and cognitive insights, and tie those directly into a job description. So essentially on the left side, you've got all the attributes of a job. On the right side, you have how the person is wired. The goal here is not to just understand the person, but to understand how that person naturally shows up in the role. From there, we can do two things really well. First, we can identify the behavioral fit for the job. Secondly, and just as important, identify potential risks and where the person may need to stretch or compensate. Then we take it one step further and turn all of that into very targeted interview questions so that we can make better decisions and more confident hiring decisions. So that's what we're going to break down today. I'm here once again with Onika Kwatsha. Hi, Onika.
Hi, Ken. We haven't had one of these chats in a while, so I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I know it's been a little bit. So let's just dive in. I think you've got some questions for me, and I hopefully have some answers for you.
Yeah, I definitely do. I feel like today's one feels a bit different. We've chatted about Team Compass, and it almost feels like a deeper dive into some of that work. And the first question that kind of came to mind for me is, we understand what Team Compass is, but can you break down what we're going to learn here that goes beyond that, and how recruitment agencies should actually be applying these assessments directly to a specific role or description?
Yeah, I think when people use behavioral assessments right now, I think they have an idea in their mind of here's what I'm looking for, right? And they look for attributes on whatever assessment they're using to kind of tie back to the original job description, but they're leaving it all a little bit to chance and nuance, right? I'm hiring for a hunter style salesperson, so maybe I'm looking for somebody that's very decisive, right? High D on a DISC profile. But maybe I don't know why they're high D. Maybe I don't know what motivates them, as an example. So the idea here is to kind of take the guesswork out of it a little bit and take the technology that we have now, combined with the assessments, combined with the job description, to really give us something more targeted. Now, from there, of course, intuition matters a lot. And of course, like gut feel even comes into play. But it sure would be nice to start those questions with something very concrete and sort of scientific, where it's like, okay, this is how they're wired. This is what you're saying you want. Because, the best, most experienced interviewers or hiring managers, we get biases, pro and con. It might be maybe we're super aware of how someone shows up and dresses to an interview, for example. So someone comes in wearing shirt and tie or a nice professional suit or whatever it is, and we're all of a sudden like, I like this person, right? And we start, and it's called the halo effect. We start haloing something in their resume or something about their appearance or whatever it is, where this just gets rid of that. There's no bias going in, and it specifically guides us to where the weaknesses might be for that candidate. We actually want to give this away to people. We want to share what we're doing so that our clients and non-clients can just make better hiring decisions, which is better for everybody.
Yeah, we've actually directly seen the impact that this has in those hiring decisions. So to your point, it really is just something that we want more people to have access to and to be more aware of, if that makes sense. But I like the idea of almost having this behavioral blueprint outside of everything. We've seen these reports, they can be massive.
Yeah.
So how do you actually go from that 70, 80-page assessment report to something a client can actually use in a practical way, stripping away all the noise and focusing on what's important?
So this is where AI comes in. And, I'm very strict about where to use AI in a recruitment process, because I think if you use AI to replace anything that was an opportunity for human connection, that can be a slippery slope. And we try to avoid that at all costs. So we don't use AI, and we don't recommend using AI to replace human contact, human conversations. But digesting an 80-page report, AI is great at that. I can read these
Yeah.
reports. In fact, what AI is doing is what I used to do long form, which is to read the entire report, read the job description, and look for similarities. And instead, we created some AI prompts that allow us to run this 80-page report through AI and along with the job description to look for where are there common threads and where are there potential gaps. The other thing, and we've talked about it before with any kind of behavioral assessment, is it's not an indictment on how someone's going to perform or how they have performed in the past. It just tells you how they're naturally wired. So we've
100%.
given dozens and dozens and dozens of these, generated these reports, these shorter reports that summarize it all up. I don't think I've ever seen anyone score above a 91. Even when they were perfect for a job, I think 91 was the highest score that I've seen so far. And it's because we all have gaps, right? There's always something in the job description. Let's stay with sales reps for a minute, because I think that when there's usually a clear cut profile for a true new business hunter style sales rep. And we're looking for someone that's very strong on the D. We're looking for someone that's got a healthy I. And then the other traits seem
Mhm.
to kind of trail off sometimes a little bit. So if someone's low on the C on a DISC assessment, it might indicate, for an example of it, it may say that, like, well, they're not going to be great with paperwork. They're not going to be great with dotting the I's, crossing the T's, which is a classic thing sometimes for really good new business hunters, is they just want to hunt business and they don't, the more paperwork you
Yeah.
throw on them, the more frustrated they get. And, but that doesn't mean, so even though they're not wired that way, it doesn't mean they haven't developed it as a skill. It's just not a natural behavioral type. So, what an interviewer would want to do, whether it's us or someone doing it themselves, is dive into, we already know they're strong in terms of how they're wired for sales. And if they have proof of performance, then great. We may not have to spend as much time there. Understand that they have a sales process, that they know their numbers, all of that. And now I'm going to dive into, hey, tell me how you guys, what's the sales process where you are? Where are you involved and where does it get hand? And try to see if, as they start talking about that stuff, is it frustrating to them? Like, can you tell that they haven't really sharpened
Yeah.
that part of their toolkit yet? And so it's an interesting dynamic, but it doesn't mean they're out. Do you know what I mean? It just means that's where you want to dive deeper. Most people know me
Yeah.
in part as kind of a systems guy, but my C score is not very high.
Yeah.
I'm wired a little more like an outside sales rep.
That one was a big shock for me, Ken, as I got to know you, because like you said, when I met you, there was like there's calendars, there's lists of this, and I couldn't believe it when you actually shared your disc profile and disc assessment results with us as a team. So it was really, really interesting to see that. But I think what I also got from what you said is from the candidate side, it's also so important to understand your results to be able to fill in where those gaps are, if that makes sense as well. So, yeah, next kind of direction my mind went to, Ken, is can you talk to me a little bit about how you connect a candidate's behavioral profile to the job itself? Like, what are you actually looking at? Are you looking for a mirror image of the job description, or are you looking for something else?
I'm just asking, like, when I built the prompts, and I'm going to sum it up in a very short way because it took me
Yeah.
hours and hours to, like, to develop the right prompting for this, but it was sort of like, look, take a look at all of the attributes of this job. And sometimes I'll go a step further because I'll have a job description, but then I'll have what a hiring manager actually told us their preferences are or what they've seen. And so sometimes I'll take the job description combined with some notes on top of that, right? Who's been successful, who hasn't been successful. And I'll ask AI basically, hey, read this disc profile and look at all of the traits and competencies. So read this really in depth, like 80-page disc profile, and look at the traits and competencies of the role combined with any notes that I've given you, and basically cross reference those things
Mhm.
to develop a 6 or 7 page report that tells us scoring of 1 to 100 in job fit, break it down by individual areas, and then let us know where we should be diving in with this candidate to see if, just like me covering my lack of detail in my career, I learned that early. Self-awareness, for anybody, for a leader, for an individual contributor, I think we get so used to like trying to cover our mistakes or not let them show or not perceive any weakness, but we're all
Yeah.
just wired different. And like there's just no possible way to be a direct fit for every job like you go for. What you have to figure out is, does this fit me? And usually scores in the mid 70s, the way that we do it, indicate that there may be a fit there. Like you still got to interview the person, but it indicates there might be a fit there, but there's still going to be gaps, right? And what we're trying to find out is, through self awareness, has that person addressed that already? Let's go back to my shortcoming, if you will, from a behavioral standpoint on the C part of this, which stands for conscientiousness, it's clarity, it's attention to detail, it's again systems and dotting the I's. And I've gotten good at all that stuff, but I got good at that stuff because I didn't like not executing on the stuff that I really like. Like if my goal is really to make more, if I'm a sales rep and my goal is to make more money, let's just say I'm money motivated and I'm a sales rep, then I know that developing a system, even though it's not really the thing I want to do, if I develop a system that makes me faster, better, and prevents me from dropping balls, then I'm going to be that much more successful. Good systems actually make you faster, which those high D's can definitely relate to.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Most leaders don't build organizations, they build cages, and you can't grow if everything depends on you. Whether you're a founder scaling your company or a corporate leader running a high performance team, growth starts with people. And that's why the first pillar at the Leaders Lab is building the right team. Before you scale, before you sell, before any big initiative, you need the right leaders around you. Our team has placed over 1,000 executives into Fortune 500 and fast-growing startups and supported over 75 acquisitions along the way, helping leaders create over $1 billion in enterprise value. At the Leaders Lab, we help you hire top talent, scale with confidence, and build a business or team that can thrive without you. Take the free Scale Up scorecard at theleaderslab.co or email me directly, ken@theleaderslab.co, to find out how ready your organization really is for growth. And now, back to the playbook.
Yeah, I really like that, Ken. And something you said to me very early on in my career that has always stuck with me is that phrase, radical self awareness. Not self awareness, like the most intense version of it, because not only do we not like to show people our shortcomings, there's a part of us that wants to do the nice, comfortable thing. Like if I'm really good at running fast and short distances, I'm just going to run the 5Ks. I don't want to
Sure.
do the marathon. Right? So that has always stuck with me.
Oh, no, I get
Sadly.
it.
But just back to what we were just talking about. So now we identify these gaps. How do we turn that into asking better interview questions when I am sitting with that candidate?
The reports that we generate will do it for you. Like they'll get very specific. Like if a job said, I'm going to just stay with the same job so we're not bouncing all over again, I'm going to stay with outside sales rep. And let's say the job description is cultivate new leads, book in, make 180 phone calls a week, set 18 appointments, meet with people face to face, convert them, make sales. The right person must be money motivated, organized, disciplined, able to follow our CRM or work with Salesforce. So now going back to that typical hunter style profile where the C might be low, they're now going to go back. The questions are going to be around,
Mhm.
oh, it said in there he's got to follow a CRM and use Salesforce and all of this. So the questions are going to be, what software systems do you use right now? How well versed are you in those systems? Anything you would, change or improve about those systems? Because the candidate is going to come back and either be able to answer that confidently and say, here's what I use. And they might, be very direct. If they're self-aware, they may come out and say, hey, not my favorite part of the job, but I've gotten very efficient at it so that I don't have to spend all this extra time and so that I don't make my boss's job
Yeah.
terrible or whatever, right? Or they're not going to be able to give you clearly defined answers. Candidates that can't answer your questions directly about their performance, about a particular area, that those are people trying to look good. And rather than just saying that's an area I haven't dove into yet, or that's an area I need to
Mhm.
improve in, they'll give you vague answers. People that are confident about what they're doing in a particular area talk specifically about what they're doing in that area.
People that are hunter sales type of people, they'll often be able to sweet talk you through things like that, right? So as I was thinking about what you were saying, I was wondering, how should a client think about risk when they see a behavioral mismatch? Does that automatically mean the candidate is not a fit, or how should they be thinking about that instead?
While it's important to not look at what could be perceived as a shortcoming or not a natural behavioral style, and again, we don't want to indict the person because they may have developed that skill set, right? But if the combined score is way off target, so I'm talking like a 50 or a 60 out of 100, what would concern me with even moving forward with that candidate to an interview is they would have to be out of their natural style for that job so
Right.
often. Do you know what I mean? That I don't know that they would be happy in that job, even if they've developed. So to give you an
Mm.
example, I could go in, let's say I wanted to apply for, I don't know, some kind of IT role or systems role. Like, hey, I can come in and help recruitment agencies build their entire tech stack, right? And I can do that. I have that skill
Yeah.
set. I don't love doing that with my time all day, every day. I can do it with a portion of my time, right? But if that was my job, I'd go crazy, I think, and be unfulfilled. But when people want a job, they're naturally trying to sell themselves like, hey, it's no problem. I can do it. And so the thing I could trick a hiring manager if they didn't really know my behavioral types is I could show proof that I could do it. I could give examples of how I've done it. I could have referrals even of how I've done it, and I could sell myself essentially to the hiring manager to the point where they would say like, hey, you got the job.
Yeah.
2 months into the job, I'm kind of head down and dragging. And what's this all about? Well, work might be fine, but it would be because I'm not really optimally placed for how I'm wired. And I'm just doing this activity that I happen to have developed as a skill set, but not as a behavioral trait, if that makes sense. So the watch outs to me are, if someone's below about a 70 overall, then I start really kind of scrutinizing the resume and who are they. And I might even go in at our level, which is before they get to the client, and say, is this
Yeah.
really what you want to be doing? Like, what's the
Mhm.
ideal role for you? I know you're applying for this one, but what's ideal? If you had a magic wand and could wave it and could do any job on the planet, what would it be? And what they're probably going to say, if they're that much of a mismatch, is something that's different from the job they're applying from. And then I can use that to gracefully pull them away from the job. And I'll just say, I don't think this one's for you. I think you can
Mhm.
do it. You've shown that you can do it, but based on what you're telling me, you're not going to be happy there. So let's talk about a different role where you're going to be more naturally fit, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Beyond that, if the score is in the 70s, in the 80s, then it's indicating a pretty good fit with deeper analysis needed, right? And the one thing that these things won't test for at all are some of the most important things, which is like cultural fit. And that's something that you're going to figure
Yeah.
out during the interview, right? This is a very hard skills of the job, behavioral wiring. That's it, right? The rest of it is going to be up to the interviewer with some assistance from the behavioral assessment. It might help them. but they've got to determine some of those nuanced things on their own.
Yeah, I like that it's not an immediate knockout. It's a conversation and it's just a prompt to look a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But zooming out a little bit, Ken, I feel like we see it a lot in recruitment where firms just send a CV, a resume in, and they call it a day. Why do you include this level of analysis as a core part of the process instead of treating it kind of as an optional add-on?
I feel like what we're aiming for in every placement and what everybody should be really is a win-win-win. And what I mean by that is a win for the client, a win for the candidate, and that creates a win for us. If we're putting square pegs in round holes, they're going to turn over. Our clients aren't going to be happy. We've disrupted the life of a candidate. Typically, the candidates that we're submitting are in roles already. They're not actively looking. They didn't apply. We found them, right? We proactively found them. And so we're yanking them kind of from what they're doing right now. Hey, you're doing this right now, but this will be better. And for us to be able to say that, I want to have a high degree of confidence, if not certainty, that's true, right? As much certainty as I can get, that is an accurate statement that I'm going to take you from here because I think this is a better fit and a better opportunity for you. And so I do it because it gives us the confidence, makes us feel good. And because we've spent the time developing the system behind it, it doesn't take us that long to do it. So it's really good value to the candidate and the clients. But, at this point, it's something we can replicate now that we've created it over and over and over again.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate you answering all these questions and kind of highlighting the shift from guessing game to more of a science kind of backed way of doing things.
Yeah, no problem. I will want to close with, and I sincerely mean this. I think a lot of times there's, lost leaders and stuff like that. If anyone is in a position where they're a hiring manager and they want to learn how to do this on their own, even if they don't want to use external recruiters, book a call with me. I'm happy to talk to you for a few minutes and I can teach you essentially at least how to get started doing this, signing up for the behavioral assessments and then creating your own sort of AI tools. And of course, if you'd rather leave that to us where we've already got that sort of dialed in, then we're happy to talk about that as well. All right, thanks.
That's it for this episode of The Playbook by the Leaders Lab. Thanks for spending some time with us. We'd love it if you would subscribe, share the show, and leave a quick rating and review. Your feedback helps us grow and it helps more leaders and founders join the conversation. If you'd like to talk more about hiring, scaling, or selling your business, please email me, ken@theleaderslab.co, or connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll be back soon with more strategies you can put to work today. I'm Ken Eslick with Onika Kwatsha. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week in The Playbook.